Which is more difficult, gi or no-gi? And this is just my opinion. You do not have to take this 100%. Take it with a grain of salt, whatever you want to do. This is just my opinion based off what I've experienced training, okay? And then another thing, if you are training Jiu-Jitsu, no-gi Jiu-Jitsu, to better your MMA game because you're an aspiring MMA fighter or you are a professional MMA fighter, this has nothing to do with you. So, that being said, you can still comment and argue that, oh, I train MMA, so I don't need to wear the gi or whatever. That's fine. Do whatever you need to do. But, which is more difficult? Gi or no gi? And when I say difficult, I mean which is harder to progress at? Which is harder skill to develop? My personal opinion is gi is a lot harder than no gi. You can be very athletic. You can have a wrestling background. You can work out and be strong. And you can go into no-gi. Very new into jiu-jitsu. Your first class is a no-gi class. The skill difference or skill gap isn't going to be that big as big as the gi. You can go into a class of no-gi, first night training, as long as you're athletics, wrestling background, strong. You can get the upper hand on a lot of training partners and a lot of higher belts. I mean, we see it all the time in tournaments. We see blue belts go into no-gi tournaments and beat purple belts, brown belts, even black belts. It's because the skill gap isn't as big as in the gi. Now, if you take that same person on their first day of jiu-jitsu, even if they have a wrestling background, they're strong, they're young, they're athletic, they go into a gi class and they roll the higher belt in the gi, they're going to get dominated. It's not even going to be close. Now, if they go against a white belt that's been training for a year, it might be a little bit close. But as soon as you start getting to the blue belts, they've been training for a decent time, purple belts, brown belts, black belts, it's not even like, it wouldn't even be close. You know, and I see it all the time. It's just harder to develop that skill because there's grips involved, right? And I'm not saying it's harder or easier or whatever because of self-defense. I'm just talking about jiu-jitsu. I'm talking about the martial art of jiu-jitsu, how you train jiu-jitsu. If you put a gi on, it becomes a lot more difficult. There's grips, there's friction, right? Now, I would say there's certain things in no-gi that are harder to do, right? Like if you're trying to play, if you have a good side control game in gi, and you try to train like that to no-gi, it's not going to be effective. It's too easy to escape side control in no-gi, especially when you start sweating. There's just nothing there to hold on to. In the gi, we have that friction. You know, we can get grips and stuff and hold them down, pin them down easier. And that's why I think in the gi it's harder. It's harder to escape those pin positions, right? Whereas in no-gi, you don't have any of that. So it's a lot easier to escape those bad positions. And I'm not saying because you do no-gi only that your jiu-jitsu isn't good. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying to progress and to really get skillful in that style of jiu-jitsu, no-gi versus gi, it's a lot more difficult in gi. And again, it's just my opinion. I don't, you can comment and argue, which is fine. I enjoy that confrontation or that communication back and forth, confrontation, whatever you want to call it. I enjoy the engagement, right? And people may say stuff, I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that, you know? I'm not saying just because I have my opinion on this that it's never going to change. I'm just saying that's what I have right now. That's what I see. So I do think the gi is a lot harder to progress at than no-gi. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think everybody should be training both, right? I don't think you should just focus on one. Now, if your dreams and aspirations are to become the IBJJF World Champion gi, whatever it is, belt you're at, weight class, then fine. Yeah, just focus on the gi. And then when you start training for, if you want to do the same thing in no-gi, then start training no-gi. But you can do both and be successful at both, okay? And I will say this, you know, I'm not, just because it's my opinion, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, and there's other people that share my opinion. Like if you watch multiple times, Demetrius Johnson, arguably one of the greatest of all time, especially at his weight class, for sure the greatest, has even said that after his retirement, he's trained gi jiu-jitsu because it's a lot harder to get good at. He said he's, you know, like comparing the two, being in MMA, no-gi grappling, he said it's so much easier than gi jiu-jitsu. Gi jiu-jitsu is way harder. And I would agree. But again, that's just my opinion. Somebody can have a different opinion. And by all means, if you do share a different opinion, comment it in the comment section. I think gi jiu-jitsu is a lot more difficult to progress at than no-gi jiu-jitsu. But I think everybody should do both. Please do both. Okay? If you disagree, please let me know why. If you have any other questions, comment it or put it in the comment section. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Yeah, appreciate it.